Welcome to the latest edition of the OmniTalk Spotlight Series, the series that highlights the people, the companies, and the technologies that are shaping the future of retail. I'm one of your co-hosts for today's interview, Chris Walton.
And I'm Ann Mazinga.
And one of the topics that has been finding its way into every conversation these days is AI. But today we're going to talk specifically about how AI is being used so that retailers can successfully utilize the very important and valuable data they're collecting from every aspect of their businesses every single day. And so we tapped an expert from a company that is likely new to many of our OmniTalk fans, but one with such tremendous expertise, we must bring them to your attention today. So it is with great pleasure that we introduce today's guest, Morgan Seybert, the head of retail at Tredence. Morgan, welcome to OmniTalk.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here. Been a long-term listener and looking forward to today's discussion. So thanks for having me.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Oh my gosh, I feel so honored.
Karina has been pushing everybody to use it and listen, and we've learned a lot. Just listening to a lot of our customers and learning about retail from you guys.
Nice. And who is Karina for our audience?
Yeah, so Karina's our Chief of Strategy and Chief of Operations. She joined us from Ahold Delhaize, and we're super excited to have her, and really excited that she's bringing a lot of great things to the team, like listening to you guys and learning a little bit more about the industry.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, we love Karina. We're so thankful for you and the team. And I'd love for you, like we said at the beginning, I'd love for you to just kind of give us a little bit of a background on Tredence first. And then at the end of that, I'd love to know what drew you to the company, Morgan.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Chris said, my name is Morgan Seybert. I lead the retail team here at Tredence. I joined Tredence actually from Nielsen, where I served as their chief product officer for a few years. And then prior to that, worked at the Coca-Cola Company, where I led their revenue management and category management teams. For those of you that might not know Tredence, we like to think of ourselves as the secret weapon powering the data and AI strategy for most of the world's largest retailers. We're actually working with 8 of the 10 largest retailers in the world, helping them solve many of their most challenging data engineering, data science, AI, and generative AI problems. But really what excited me to join Tredence was their philosophy around the last mile adoption of analytics. And as I mentioned, I spent a lot of my career at Coke leading their revenue management team. And one of the things that we always struggled with is we could build these great models, these great data science models to understand our consumers, their price responsiveness, the incrementality of our promotions, et cetera. And we build them in the quote ivory tower, as we like to call it in Atlanta. And we were so excited by the insights and what we could do to improve the $6 billion that we are spending on trade every year. But we never saw the results in the market. And we never saw our promotions improve. We never saw the ROI of our promotions improve. And over the years, we kept challenging ourselves. Why is that? Why are these insights not making their way to the market and ultimately into our results? And one of the things that we learned is it's that last mile adoption of the analytics that were incredibly important in enabling our end users, enabling our field sales teams, enabling our up and down the street resources and associates that were calling on our customers to not only understand the insights that we were able to generate out of our data science models, but how to actually translate those insights into decisions that they could take with their customers. And so I was really drawn to Tredence by their focus on last mile adoption of analytics and sort of bridging that gap between the world's best data science and actual quantifiable business results.
So Morgan, you use the term last mile. Explain that for our audience a little bit more. Go a little bit more in depth into that, because, when I think of last mile, the typical parlance is really in the delivery space, right? Like, how do I get the product to the actual doorstep of the consumer? But you're using last mile differently. So can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great analogy, Chris, right? So last mile and supply chain, as you rightfully said, is how do we get the product out to the customer or the consumer or the shopper, as the case may be. We think of it the same way in analytics, right?
Okay, interesting.
At the end of the day, if I'm building a price and promotion model, how do we actually get it from the model itself and the data to the salesperson that's then going to use it calling on a retailer? Right. And then how do we translate that insight into a better decision that the retailer can make? And then how does the retailer then bring that key insight into their stores in terms of better prices, better promotion, and better ultimate ROI? And so we we see a huge gap in that space. We see a lot of great analytics out there, but the adoption of those insights and analytics is very, very low. I'll probably get the stats slightly wrong, but the Gartners, the Forresters, they've done a lot of research into this space, and they find that for the average retailer, the percent of decisions that are actually driven by insights, despite all the explosion of data, despite all the explosion of AI, is under 15%. And so we think that's a huge opportunity just to increase the analytic maturity of an organization and increase the adoption of analytics at, as we like to say, the last mile.
I'm surprised it's that high.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Morgan, I love this because as someone who worked in, and this is not even in the field, but this is just in the creative teams at a large enterprise retailer at Target, like we didn't have that data. Even like we knew that was going on in the background, and you get a general sense of like the market
Good
conditions,
point.
but you never really got like, this is how we should be talking to the consumers based on this data, and or how can we like use the data to create smarter creative. Do you have any examples or anything of like how this has been changed in the field, like what any retailers or brands that you've worked with who like something that they might be doing with this data to really change that day to day, or kind of what they're prioritizing?
Yeah, so I'll stay actually in the example you shared with creative. As I mentioned, we're working with some of the largest retailers in the world, and one of the areas that we see data and Gen AI really shaking up is actually in the marketing space and in the personalization and in the
Interesting.
kind of customer interaction space. And so one of the projects that we did, it actually won the AWS hackathon in Gen AI, was actually helping a retailer help their marketing team use Gen AI to create better personalized experiences across omni-channel touch points. And so what we were able to do is we're able to help them stitch together all of their first and third party data around their customers. So they could have all of their purchase data, their loyalty data, their clickstream data, their rest of market, credit card data, Nielsen data, et cetera, put that into a customer 360, put data science models on top of it around customer lifetime value and headroom and price sensitivity and personalization, et cetera. But historically, that's where that data has stopped. And I think, Anne, in your example, you probably felt that yourselves at Target.
Yes.
And so as a marketer, you're not going to go in and write a bunch of SQL against that data and try to query it and build your audiences. You need a simple way to understand all of that data. And so we actually built the Gen AI model on top of it. And what that Gen AI model allowed marketeers to do is be able to describe the campaign that they wanted to run, right? So, hey, I'm seeing a churn in my households. I'm losing households. I've got this great offer from a supplier. Help me identify the right people to target with this. And so instead of having to know a bunch of SQL code and a bunch of data science, they could just write that out in plain English, get an audience list that was automatically created for them, and then actually have the models build personalized content for that marketing copy. And so when they sent that message to that targeted list of customers, they could actually send highly personalized content and copy to those customers based on all of that customer 360 data that we created. And so that to me is that last mile adoption, right? Which is many of the data sources that I talked about, and we've had for decades in retail. I mean, obviously some are newer, clickstream, et cetera, but being able to then take that data and put it in the hands of a marketeer to make a better decision, or be able to put that data in the hands, Chris, in your example around last mile, put that data in the hands of a store manager, as an example, to know when a product is out of stock on the shelf, so they can go to the back room, bring that product from the back room, put it on the shelf, and avoid a disruption to the customer. And it's really that last mile where we've tried to focus our efforts on helping our clients see a significant value unlock from their data.
Yeah, or the promo might not even be signed correctly in store. You can alert the store manager to something like that too, which is also key. Yeah, I want to take a second too to stop and just highlight for, because you mentioned it too. We had Vince Cole from AWS, not surprisingly now that you're saying what you're saying, talking about personalization and marketing being one of the key places where generative AI can have an immediate impact. And so, that's why we do the Spotlight series, folks. That's because you can get a sense of the through lines here that we're consistently talking about in terms of the people, the companies, and the technologies that are shaping the future. And so, these conversations all go together. So let's get this kicked into high gear here. So ISG recently named Tredence the leader retailers should seek out when it comes to retail data analytics. First, I would say congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And second, let's talk about the differentiation that makes you actually stick out and deserve that moniker.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Chris. I appreciate the recognition. I think the recognition is really for our team. We've got over 1,000 incredibly talented consultants working with some of the world's largest retailers. So my thanks is really to them for it. But in terms of the work that we do, we're a data and AI consulting company helping many of the world's retailers better harness the power of their data. And what we think makes us incredibly unique is the portfolio of solution accelerators that we've created to support our retail partners. If you look at a problem statement that you have, let's say you want to build a demand forecasting model, or you want to migrate your data from a legacy on-premise environment to a modern cloud like GCP, historically you've had two options in that space, right? One, you can go and buy a SaaS solution to help you do that. You can buy a Blue Yonder or any of these other demand forecasting solutions off the shelf, as an example. And those provide a ton of value, right? They're ready to go, they're out of the box, and they drive quick speed, right? But the challenge there is you're paying for that in perpetuity, licensing cost, ongoing fees, et cetera. And those models aren't going to be customized to your unique dynamics, your customers, your business, et cetera. On the other side, you then could say, you know what, this is a really important strategic initiative for me that I want to treat as a core differentiator in my business. And so I'm going to build it completely from scratch. And so you spin up a huge team and you build a completely bespoke product with the right workflows, the right customization built exactly to your business. The challenge there, of course, is time and cost.
Right.
And so what we've done with our accelerator portfolios, we've built out about 140 different retail use cases, both data science and data engineering, that we think are incredibly
That's
common
interesting.
challenges that
Yeah.
retailers are going to face.
Yeah.
We've built out the Lego block starting points to solve those problems. And so if we stick with the demand forecasting example, Chris, we've got a starting point in demand forecasting, our
Right.
champion challenger model that brings together your traditional multilinear regressions, your deep learning models like XGBoost, FBProfit, et cetera, as well as really modern techniques around demand forecasting, such as transformer models. And we're able to bring those to our engagements with our customers as the starting point to then custom development. And so instead of starting from a blank screen, you've got something that's 60 to 70% done. And we can then focus our time on that last mile adoption of insights, where we're building a custom full stack front end UI that's completely bespoke to the customer's workflow, as an example, to drive that adoption and drive the usage of analytics into their business. And so I'd say that's probably one of the biggest advantages that we have. And I think you see that come through in the recognition that we just got from ISG.
Wow, that's really interesting. And I just hit my computer. I got so excited. So I apologize for the bump there, everyone that are watching this video. But yeah, it's really interesting because it's a very different approach. And basically what I took from that is you're saying, like, don't boil the ocean. There are problems you can solve quickly and easily. But by the same token, the point I want to ask you about is that requires the average retail executive to be very thoughtful about their strategy and where they think the biggest bang for their buck can come from the right deployments in regards to what you're saying, which oftentimes is, I hate to say it, but different than how the average retail executive thinks. So how do you bridge that divide in those conversations as you're trying to talk through this with them?
Yeah. So I think a big part of our focus is on that initial data and AI strategy consulting and development.
Okay.
And so our work starts all the way back at the beginning, which is, do we have all of the right data? Do we have all of the right data in the right place? Do we have it in a modern cloud-based architecture that allows us to then put deep data science on top of the models? Do we have the right data quality algorithms in place? So we have trustworthy, certified data that we can put in the hands of our end users, and then assessing across all the different pieces of retail, from supply chain to marketing to merchandising, assessing where we are, what's our analytic maturity, and what some of our biggest opportunities are. And so through that work, what we're really able to do is then build out that data science roadmap for them, build out that enterprise data platform roadmap for them, and then focus on the areas with the highest ROI and the highest bang for the buck. And so if you kind of stay on that accelerator theme that I was talking about earlier in the demand forecasting space, with one of our larger customers, they're about a $60 billion regional retailer. They were using one of those SaaS platforms for over 20 years. It was costing them $2.5 million a year in licensing costs just to support that SaaS platform.
Right.
And they were getting inferior predictions which was leading to out of stocks, higher inventory carrying costs, and a lot of challenges across their supply chain. Leveraging our accelerator portfolio, we came in 6 weeks. We built the demand forecasting model that was able to replace their entire SaaS-based solution, and we increased the forecast accuracy by over 1,000 basis points, which had tremendous impact in reducing out of stocks and creating a better customer experience. And so through this portfolio, we're really able to rapidly help our retail partners address that kind of data science and data evolution roadmap.
Yeah, yeah, and it keeps the retailer more flexible and nimble too. I can see based on how you're describing this why you have so many of the top 10 retailers in your stable. My question would be why haven't the other two got the punchline to the joke? That's my question.
Man, I'd love to know the answer to that question too. So if you figure that out, Chris, you give me a call and you let me know.
Right. Well, hey, maybe they'll listen to this podcast and they'll get religion real quick. Tredence religion real quick. All right, so let's get to that. So one of the things that Ann and I have been hearing consistently from all the retailers we've talked to, and particularly at every trade show conference we go to, we interview a bunch of them, the big time executives. There's this big concern.
I love those interviews, by the way, Chris. We
learn a lot. Thank you.
You get, kind of off the cuff insights from some of the biggest retailers, and it helps us think about where we're going to make our investments and the types of problems that we're solving.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, you never know what angles they're going to go in those conversations. You get a real glimpse into their personality too, which is also good, which we love. But one of the big topics they've been talking about is this relationship between price and value and promotions, particularly in the economy. And the earnings reports have kind of been a mixed bag, right? You've got some companies that are, thriving within this environment. Other ones like Dollar General just had a big hit a couple of weeks ago because of their recent earnings report, and saying that the customer is actually becoming more cautious with their purchases, even in that dollar segment. So how do you think retailers should be thinking about this, almost hairy issue, so to speak? And how have you helped retailers think through the challenges and dynamics when it comes to pricing and promoting their products in this current environment?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple ways that we're helping our retail partners think about that problem. Historically, when you thought about the price and promotion problem, and I come from this space, and so this was always the way my mind was wired, is we think about the shelf price, we think about the mass available promotions, et cetera, that we're offering to everybody that walks into the store. The challenge with those is, if you look at the data on those, they're incredibly inefficient, actually. So there was actually a study that we ran when I was at Nielsen that said 72% of every promotions are actually inefficient, right? And so if you run 100 promotions, 72 of them actually lose money. So, one of the things that we've realized is, because you're doing that mass promotion to everybody, you're leaving a ton of opportunity on the table. Right. And so the opportunities that are the promotions I'm going to respond to are going to be different than you, Chris, or Ann, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so we can be smarter about understanding our customer. We can be more personalized in the messaging that we give them from a marketing point of view, as Ann was talking about earlier from her experience as a target, but we can also be more personalized in the promotions that we're sending to them. And so if we can start to identify, the folks that are most price responsive, we can give them more aggressive promotions as an example. Or if we can start to identify the types of products that are really driving price perception of a given retailer or of a given shopper, we can send them promotions on those products. And so by being far more personalized in our activation, we can be far more efficient in how we actually deploy those dollars to create better perception and ultimately drive more traffic into our stores. And so I think a big part of the focus that we've had is really around how you can take what's historically been a, kind of shotgun, spraying and pray type approach, and be far more targeted in it. The second thing that we've done is, there was always this kind of age-old challenge of what's the true ROI of our promotions, right? So as I mentioned in my introduction, I came from Coke. And one of the things I always dreamed of knowing was, when we ran a huge promotion on our 12 packs, our kind of Coke Classic red can, we thought that did a ton to drive folks into the store, right? So if you saw a great price on Coke because of how important that brand is, how important that product is, it drove a lot of extra people to the store. When you drive those extra people to the store, that's then gonna, create a lot of goodness across the store, because they're gonna put a ton of other products in their basket, et cetera. But we didn't have the data science at the time to really prove that. And so I think data science techniques have really advanced, and we're doing some really cool things with our team, pioneering this idea of true incrementality, where we can measure, when we run a promotion, what's actually happening. How much of that volume is being cannibalized from other products? How much of that is being pulled forward from future weeks? And then how much of that is actually incremental people that are coming into the store and buying 10 other things when they're in the store. And it allows us to be far more precise in putting our dollars into the promotions that are actually working really, really hard for us.
Yeah. And
And then
that's
the
what we'll
last thing,
take. Oh, go
yeah,
ahead. Sorry.
yeah, I was just gonna say the last thing we've been thinking about is, when you look at price and promotion, Chris, one of the things that really interests me is those trade funds have historically been kind of driven by a really, really old rule called Robinson-Patman, which basically says
Yep.
the allocation of trade funds has to be fair and equitable. I saw you smile, so it sounds like you're familiar with it. But one of those challenges with everything being, kind of allocated in that fair and equitable way is we couldn't divert funds to where we were going to get the best return on different products, et cetera. And what I think is really changing with the growth in retail media, as an example, is
Yes.
those
Isn't
dollars
it?
can become far
Yep.
more fungible, right?
Yep.
And so we've actually, it's again back to the kind of secret weapon. We've actually built 3 of the 5 largest retail media networks in the world.
No
And so
way.
through that work, we're able to help our clients create better, more personalized audiences that they can then sell with their supplier partners and ultimately create a better ROI for their supplier partners. And so when you look at creating value, that's another great way for a retailer to create incremental value for their shoppers, is by getting more of those supplier funds to fund highly relevant, highly personalized experiences.
Yeah, and I was going to go in the omni-channel angle on this too, but I know Anne's got a question she wants to ask you about retail
No,
media first. So go
that was
ahead, Anne.
actually the question I was going into, is like, how, have you seen more of the retailers that you're working with kind of jump on board or make investments in this area with you that they didn't before, because of the value of, what they're getting from it from a pricing and
Yeah.
promotion standpoint to begin with, but then also as they're building their retail media networks?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you look at retail, and you know this from your own career, Ann, right? It's inherently a very low margin business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most retailers kind of operate in single digit margin
Right.
range, and the revenue that can be generated from a retail media network is typically 70 to 80% margin for these retailers. And so, if you look at the P&L for some of the retailers that are very early in the game around retail media network, they're generating billions of dollars of revenue off their retail media network. And if that's at 70 to 80% margin, if you look at that as a share of their EBITDA as a company, it's getting well into the double digits, and it's a huge profit driver for them, of course. But on the flip side of that, not only is it a great profit driver for them, it's a great way to offer incremental value to their customers. And so what we're really seeing is retail media networks are kind of in a bit of an arms race as we think about it,
Yeah.
where they're
We agree.
focused, in our opinion, on really 3 levers that can help them win a disproportionate share of those supplier dollars to be able to deploy to create value for their customers. They're very focused on creating more inventory, right? By having more of our customers be addressable, that creates more inventory. By having more places we can put personalized content, that creates more inventory for us. And so the more inventory we can create, the more we can ultimately, kind of monetize, and the more value we can create. We talked about, customer intelligence and better understanding our customers. If we can offer our suppliers a better understanding of their target customers, that then creates a reason for them to want to spend more with our retail media network. And so if we can move from just the old fashioned way of looking and selling audiences of, I want people who didn't buy Coke but bought Pepsi, to actually go even more deeper and say, I want people that didn't buy Coke but bought Pepsi and have shown a willingness to try new products and are price sensitive and are this demographic, et cetera. And we can get very, very specific about that. And by getting very, very specific about that, the ROI on our investments goes through the roof.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, this is really cool stuff. So like, you got me going back to my merchant days too. And Ann, I forgot one of the headlines we did not talk about on our Fast Five. And I think it's really important within the context of this discussion is that, is when Sam's Club said they're going to take their Scan and Go application and they're going to pipe it into their retail media. Because, what we're talking about here, what Morgan's essentially talking about here with the Coke, and the Coke's a great example, right? I know you're going to go right in on this with me, Morgan, is like, you get someone to buy a Coke, it gets them through the threshold of the store. Then the question Coke's going to start asking themselves is, how do I get them from Coke to that next product that I want them to buy? And so through a scan and go application, a mobile application, you can personalize that trail of purchases through the store, almost like a treasure hunt in a way that we never could before. And as the retailer, you can also secure those dollars from a retail media perspective when you bring mobile technology into play in the physical store. And that is really game changing in a lot of ways. So am I thinking about that the right way, that that's opening up new avenues, Morgan?
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right, Chris. If you look at the kind of precursor to retail media, Tesco, dunnhumby,
Yeah.
folks like that, kind of started this, right? And it was all about personalizing the mailer that was sent to my house, right? And sending me coupons
Yeah.
that were
Right.
relevant to me in the mailbox, right? But because of technology, because of our ability to have kind of real time streaming data, a real time understanding of the customer, we can actually interact with that customer in a highly personalized way
Yeah.
at the point of purchase, whether
So
online
cool.
or in store,
Yeah.
with
So
highly
cool.
personalized audiences, right? And what's really cool about this, and this is getting like way in the deep end
Yeah.
of retail media networks, is having the right bidding algorithms in place and having the
Oh
right
my God.
horsepower
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
compute
Right.
in your enterprise platform to be able to sell those audiences in real time as somebody standing at the shelf when they're at the Coke aisle, being
Right.
able to say, yep, I know this person's at the Coke aisle. I now want to sell them something for Powerade because I know that they're
Yep.
already, kind of in the market, they're in the store, they're ready
Yep.
to go, et cetera. And so I think you're going to see a lot more of these kind of real time use cases really come to life here, more and more, over the next 6, 9, 12 months.
Yeah, and back in the day, this was like 10 years ago. I was working with Unilever to try to do that with coupons on package,
Yeah.
right? Like you
Right.
buy a thing of
Right.
Bertolli, then you go and here's a deal on peanut butter and jelly. It's the same
Yeah.
thing, but it's so hard to execute.
Yeah.
It was actually impossible. We tried it and it didn't work. It actually worked a little bit, but it was too hard to execute consistently day in, day out. I just hit my computer again. I'm too excited, Ann.
Yeah, no, I know. Chris, I was thinking the same thing. And then Morgan, when you were talking about like the mailers, like you just think about the old data that was
Yeah.
so like this. Yes, we got this coupon in store, but by the time that made its way back to the retailers and CPGs, it was hard to make an actionable decision. And this has just leapfrogged us so far ahead. And I wondered this, Morgan, like I want to continue on that thread a bit. We've talked about a lot that you're unlocking for retailers right now, but where do you think like the innovation in this area, especially when we get even deeper into like taking in this retail data and analytics and being able to react to it in real time? How do you think about that? Where is it going? And especially like in the context of how Tredence might be involved in that kind of future
Yeah.
innovation.
Yeah. So I think, if you look at that space, a lot of folks are talking about Gen AI, and I think where folks are really struggling in the Gen AI space right now is in the consumer and customer facing use cases, right? And so the main use case that a lot of retailers have right now around Gen AI is just insights unlock, right? If you
Hmm.
look at some of our customers, which are, many of the world's largest retailers, they'll have 20,000 active users of their reporting platform, and they'll have 30, 40, 50, 60,000 reports, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
You're never going to find meaningful insights
No.
about your business by looking at hundreds of BI reports every single day. And so I think a lot of retailers are starting to dabble in Gen AI around, how do we start to extract insights from the data? How do we allow our store managers to be able to query our data to understand what's happening in the stores and the actions they should be taking? How do we help our merchandisers understand, whether they're in trade fund compliance or not with their suppliers? But the space I'm really excited about is when you start applying a lot of that to customer facing experiences and customer facing personnel. A lot of our clients are doing some really cool things. We're working with several kind of, general merch and hardline retailers where they're creating really exciting clienteling apps. So when you go up and you talk to somebody in an apparel store, as an example, you actually have a great understanding of that customer while you're servicing them directly off of your Gen AI application. So you can better personalize that experience with that customer at the point of interaction.
Morgan, what kind of things are you seeing in that instance? Because I've heard this talked about a
Yeah.
lot where people are like, okay, I have more information about my customer, but like, is it, future purchases? Like, what kind of stuff is
Yeah.
in the hands of the associate now that wasn't
Yeah, so
before?
one of our clients is one of the world's largest drugstore chains, as an
Okay.
example. So they've obviously got your kind of traditional consumable products, et cetera, that they sell, as well as the pharmacy, right? And one of the things that they're doing is they're starting to understand the health patterns of their customer, and they're able to
Okay.
offer more personalized recommendations to the customer of products that they should be buying, things that might help them with a health condition, et cetera. And so it's doing obviously great things to their ability to personalize experiences for their customer and drive revenue growth, but it's also adding value to their customers' lives and helping extend customers' lives as
Sure.
well. And so, when you look at the type of information to your question, and that's really available, it's that full 360-degree picture of the customer and all of the touch points that they have with you. And so you can understand what they bought in the past and what that means around what type of products they should be buying or they're likely to
Sure.
buy, right?
Sure.
You can understand, is a certain customer more responsive to new products and high-end products versus are they price sensitive and more promotionally responsive? And so you can really understand all of those different attitudes, behaviors, and preferences around your customer, so you can personalize all of the services that you offer to that customer.
Got it.
Wild.
All right. So you gave us one example. I'm going to go back to my personnel interviewing days, because whenever I get one example from somebody to a question, I would ask them, I'd say, "Oh, that's really good. Can you give me another example?" to see if they had just, prepared one answer. But I'm
Yeah.
curious, do you have another example, or maybe multiple examples of retailers that you're actually helping in the regards that we've been describing in this podcast?
Yeah, so I think there's a super cool one as well, just kind of sticking in the Gen AI and the personalization space. One of our grocery clients, we actually helped them build a customer facing application that's on their website now, where the
Okay.
customer can go in and actually describe a type of event that they're planning,
Hmm.
what meals they're looking to prepare, et
Hmm.
cetera, and it automatically builds an entire basket for them. Right. So you could go in and say, "Hey, I'm planning, a big game coming up
Right.
for anybody who's into college football, Georgia Clemson this weekend." Right. You can come down and say, "Hey, I'm planning a party. I've got 12 people coming over for the game. Help me, with the right products that I should buy." And it'll build an entire basket for
Hmm.
you. And they can just click check out and go right then and there. And so, we're seeing a lot of really cool use cases around better servicing and interacting with customers. And then, the other side of that is the ones that aren't super sexy, but are super important as well, which is, all about how we can create efficiency across our supply chains as well,
Hmm.
right? And so one of our clients is one of the largest kind of prepared foods providers in the world. And so, if you ever go into a convenience store, as an example, all the pizzas that they have to pre-make, et cetera,
Mhm.
there's actually not a lot of science that goes into that historically, right? And so if you
No.
look at the food waste there,
No. Yeah.
most retailers are throwing out 40, 50, 60, 70% of the food that they prepare. What's the problem with that? Obviously, it's not sustainable for
Right.
Right.
the planet, right? But it's awful for my P&L too, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
preparing all these food and I'm throwing it out. And so one of the really cool things that we've done is, based on historical sales patterns, based on real-time information around events, weather, et cetera, we're actually sending automated recommendations to the store at the day part level about what products they should actually prepare each and every day by day part. And that's done a tremendous value for them, where they've been able to reduce their food wastage by over 40%. It's driven about $60 million of direct savings to their bottom line, because they're not throwing all that stuff out anymore. And so there's huge use cases here that we've seen in retail around better customer experiences, but also a ton of just efficiency that can be created across the supply chain.
Holy mozzarella and holy mozzarella.
I'll say, Morgan, this has been so amazing. I want to just close the conversation with kind of any advice you have for the retailers who are listening, our OmniTalk audience. How do they get started? Like, where's the best place to
Yeah.
kind of dip their toe in and like really
Yeah.
kind of figure out where to go here? Because there's so much that this is unlocking for them.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about all the sexy end use cases, right? And so
Yeah,
I'll end
yeah.
in a decidedly unsexy answer, which is to be able to do all of these really cool use cases that we've talked about. You
Yeah.
have to get your data foundation in order, and you have to get your enterprise data platform in order. And so we're seeing a lot of retailers struggle with just bringing all of their data together, landing it in a modern, kind of cloud-based, lakehouse-based architecture, and then being able to structure that data in a way that people can actually consume that information. And so before you go on this data science journey, this Gen AI journey, et cetera, you've got to make that investment in your core enterprise data platform. And so we've actually done probably more work there than in any of the cool use cases that we talked about. We actually built out a retail data model that helps folks structure their data, helps folks create certified data assets that people can then use in their organization to drive insights. And that data model is actually powering over $1 trillion of global annual revenue right now. And so what I'd say is make sure your enterprise data platform is in the right shape and the right state for this type of work. And then do some of the things we talked about earlier in the call around identifying what you want as your strategic differentiators. You can't go solve all of these use cases, and really focus there on building something that's truly bespoke, unique, and custom to you, while leveraging some of these accelerator type solutions to really speed value in other areas, just to get you, up to a great spot.
That is so perfectly said, Morgan. Thank you again for taking the time to talk with Chris and I. We got so inspired. Chris is banging his computer. He's so entertained by this.
I was pretty jazzed up for
this.
This was a great conversation, man.
Yes,
really good.
Yes. If people want to get in touch with you, Morgan, and they won't need to, start a conversation with you, learn more about Tredence, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, I mean, we're fairly easy to find. Just go to our website, tredence.com, and contact us through the website. Or you can send any of us an email. Our email is pretty simple. It's just morgan.seybert@tredence.com. And feel free, reach out to us. We'd love to, offer our kind of point of view on some of these use cases and conduct some of that data strategy and discovery work that I talked about earlier.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Morgan Seybert, head of retail at Tredence, for sitting down with us today. Thanks to all of you who joined us and who are listening right now. And on behalf of all of us here at OmniTalk, as always, be careful out there.